The 2025 GR86 Toyota's Subaru in disguise gets a few incremental updates for this year. As always, I'm going to go through this thing from the outside in, talk about what's new for this model year, and talk about what it's like to drive. Let's go ahead, take a look. The big changes for 2025 are some tweaks to the suspension as well as to the steering for better road feel as well as better handling. And of course, Toyota can't let a year go by without introducing a special edition. This year, it's the revival of the Hakone edition. There was a 2020 GT86, the last generation Hakone edition. Now there's a 2025 GR86 Hakone edition named for the Hakone Turnpike in Japan. But basically what it is a GR86 Premium with the performance pack, just like the Torsen edition last year, except now you get green paint, bronze wheels, and some tan trim on the interior, and it is beautiful. I love a green car, and I don't love bronze wheels, but it looks really good on those bronze wheels. And there are going to be 860 of those special editions. But basically outside of that appearance pack, I have that exact car here. This is a GR86 Premium with the performance pack, so I'll go through what all that means as we go here. Under the hood, we've got an FA24 engine. This is a familiar series if you're coming from a WRX or of course a BRZ, which is essentially the same car with some minor tweaks, but this one is naturally aspirated. It makes 184 horsepower up at 3,700 RPM, so that's pretty low for a naturally aspirated engine. You hit that peak pretty low, and then your torque, your peak torque is going to be 228 pound-feet. Power hits the ground through the rear wheels, and you do get a Torsen limited slip differential as standard. No matter which trim you go for, you do get the choice between a standard 6-speed manual transmission or a 6-speed auto. Now my tester here does have the auto. If you're hoping for the manual or you just want to see a little comparison, I will have the sister car, the BRZ, coming up in a couple of weeks, and that one will be in 3-pedal form, so stick around for that one. If you are looking for an auto, that transmission choice sets you back about $1,100, and it will only add about 40 pounds, which is not too bad. Still right around the 2,800 pound mark, 2,850 here in premium trim with the automatic transmission. Pretty light here in terms of modern cars. You're not touching the Miata. The Miata's under 2,400 pounds. But as far as modern cars go, 2,800 pounds is still very, very light. And interestingly, the automatic is actually a little bit slower. That does set you back about half a second on the 0 to 60 time. Not that the straight line speed is really the reason that you buy this car, but it puts you from 6.1 seconds to about 6.6 on the 0 to 60. Big notes on the exterior, outside of the gorgeous profile and the track bred paint color. I mean, props to Toyota for that groaner of a joke. I'm glad somebody over there has a sense of humor. I love that. But otherwise, 168 inches overall, 111-inch wheelbase. So nice and tight, nice and compact, plus super lightweight. Definitely great for that handling prowess. This one being a premium means it's got the 18-inch matte black wheels with the Michelin Pilot Sport 4 summer tires instead of the 17s with the Primacy HP summer tires that you get in the base. Adaptive lighting instead of the regular LEDs, and a color matched ducktail, making it a true sports car according to the wing rule. And then the performance pack that I mentioned is well worth the $1,500 that's going to set you back. I mentioned that's part of the Hakone edition. It was part of the Torsen last year. As of last year for 2024, you can option it as a standalone thing now. You get the SACHS dampers and the upgraded brakes. That has been one of the problems with the GR86, GT86, the BRZ for a while. So a lot of people complained about the brakes. This solves that problem. Definitely worth the $1,500 just for the upgraded Brembos. The other option that this particular car has on it is the black performance exhaust. That'll set you back another $1,700. Gives it kind of a deeper, throatier sound. I'm not the biggest fan of 4-cylinder boxer engines. I don't think that the WRX sounds that great. I don't think that this car sounds all that great, and I don't think that the performance exhaust really helps. It gets kind of drony on the highway, but you know, I'll give you a little sound clip. You can judge for yourself. So aside from that, everything you see here is standard, and then you can pop the trunk. You got the button there, or on the Subaru key with the Toyota logo on it, you can pop it from there as well. That opens up into a fairly small amount of space all things considered. I mean, it's more than a Miata, so it's got that going for it, but that's a pretty low bar. But what's nice here is you can drop down that back row and get a flat floor. So if you've got pets or you've got a lot of luggage, you can find the space to put your stuff in here. There's nothing to grab here though. You have to grab the paint. The inside is, well, not really anything to write home about. I mean, it does have premium in the name of the trim level, but let's face it, it's still a budget sports car where most of the focus is on the driving dynamics. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, if they can get this price point with this interior, and that means that it gets these driving dynamics, I am all for it. It certainly still gets the job done, and the Premium adds the alloy sport pedals, the 8-speaker sound system instead of the 6, and these ultra suede with leather trimmed seats. Everything else you see here is standard. You got dual zone climate, you got Subaru's 2005 infotainment system. It does have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, at least. Those are wired, and I've had a bunch of trouble with it. I have not been able to get Android Auto to connect at all. I did get it to connect when I had the 2022 a couple years ago, so not really sure what's going on there. It's got to just be a software update or something with my phone, or something's going on, but I have not been able to connect. At least you can always fall back to the iPod. See? 2005. Cluster graphics match the first computers, but there's a lot of good info in there. Tire pressure, torque curve, oil temp, some other good performance monitors. Gets the job done for sure. Seats are manually adjustable to save some weight and some cost. These actually feel tighter than the ones in the Miata. You're definitely going to want to sit in these for a little while to just make sure that they fit you. And that's honestly the biggest barrier to getting in and out. The doors are nice and long, so that makes the opening for the egress pretty good, but the seats being so aggressive, that's really the toughest part of getting in and out of here. If you do fit in these, then they're great for those spirited drives and for the track drives. They'll keep you nice and tight without bobbling around too much. Headroom is pretty decent, and actually so is legroom. You can push this seat pretty far back. Being tall is not a barrier to entry here like it is with the Miata. Big bonus points for that. A couple of hidden cup holders here, some USB-A's and the aux. This third cup holder up front actually goes away if you pick the stick. Not the most convenient to reach back here, but a lot better than having a cup in the way when you're trying to shift. There are technically back seats. As you can see, they are not very comfortable. I've gotten my 6-year-old and my 8-year-old back here. My 6-year-old's feet were being smashed a little bit, and I was sitting uncomfortably close to the steering wheel. Getting a little claustrophobic back here, actually. But if you've watched any of my other videos, a lot of people like to complain about how I sit way too close to the steering wheel. And so if I was feeling too uncomfortably close, then that definitely means something here. And I'm only 5'7". I mean, you could, I guess, use one of the seats back here if you push the passenger seat way up and you can get a kid back here. But I'd save it for stuff or pets. Even better, drop the seats down and use it as a shelf. Now for the drive. All right, so spirited driving, the big updates here, tweaks to the suspension, the throttle mapping, the steering, better responsiveness from the throttle when you're trying to blip for downshift, so it's really gonna show itself more in the manual version, not something I can test here in the auto. It's still better responsiveness here in the auto, but you know, it's gonna make a lot more of a difference in the manual. And then for the suspension and the steering, better handling and better sense of ground contact. Now, without driving them back to back, it's tough to pull out all the little differences between last year's and this year's. I did look for one. Unfortunately, was not able to find one. But one thing I do definitely notice is the steering is a lot tighter. I do remember a little bit more slop right in the middle of the steering, whereas now it is very dialed in. It responds well to every little change in the steering. You feel is a very tight, very dialed in steering rack. Really, the whole experience is very dialed in. There's not a ton of body roll. It's very a point and shoot car. I don't know about better sense of ground contact. I mean, it's still an electronic power steering rack. It's dialed in, but I don't know that I'm necessarily getting a ton of information from the wheels into my hands. But it is certainly confident through the twisties. It does what you ask of it without hesitation. Now, if you do want to break loose, get a little bit sideways. I remember when the car first came out, a lot of the journalists were having a lot more fun with the base model because it had the primacies on it instead of the PS4s. And it definitely helps to have worse tires. It's funny, when you get into like the hairpins or even a 90-degree, if you go hard on the throttle through the corner, then you can feel that really it's the tires that are the only thing holding you on tight. Like the rest of the car is ready to move sideways, but the tires are just hanging on for dear life. So if you want to get sideways, it's definitely going to be a lot easier with worse tires, but these PS4s are doing a good job of holding in tight. Now, speaking of throttle, this car is it has about the same horsepower as the Miata I was just in. Has a lot more torque, but it also weighs a lot more than the Miata. But ultimately, it does feel quite a bit faster. I think the 0 to 60 time actually shows the GR86 as slower, but it feels faster. I think a lot of that has to do with the gearing, and so you can ring out pretty far here in second, even into third. You can ring it out a little bit, but it's not quite the same kind of slow car fast feeling that you get with the Miata. It's not that sense of ceremony in every gear. This car definitely feels a lot quicker than the spec sheet suggests. So you got to keep your eye on your speed a little bit more than you would in a Miata. And now it doesn't have the torque dip also. That was a big thing with the last generation. There's a big dip in the torque once you got up into the revs a little bit, whereas this one really pulls pretty hard from your peak at 3,700 all the way through up to red line. And when you need to get stopped quickly, the upgraded brakes do an excellent job. Again, I highly recommend getting the upgraded brakes. That was a problem last gen and this gen with the regular brakes. They're just not as good. They're not the upgraded brakes aren't like BMW, I feel like, does the best job with brakes, or they do a very good job with them. They're kind of like grabby, but not too grabby, and they get you stopped really quickly and very confidently. These aren't quite that level of grabbiness, but once you get into the pedal, they will get you stopped very quickly and very confidently still. I had to do a couple of very, very quick stops for some emergency vehicles recently, and they did an excellent job. As for the transmission, I mean, I've made it pretty clear in other videos that I typically prefer a manual transmission, but ultimately, this automatic is much better than I anticipated. A traditional 6-speed auto in a performance car, at least it's not a CVT, but I was skeptical. But it's actually very good. It's very well tuned. The decisions it's making are really about what I would do in a manual anyway. Pop it into sport or track for a little bit more aggression, and again, it's tuned to about where I would be shifting anyway. And then if you do want more control for yourself, use the paddles. It responds pretty quickly. It's not lightning quick, it's not a PDK, but it responds much faster than I expected. And I've had no trouble with it gatekeeping gears. When I ask for a gear, it gives it to me. Now, when it comes to daily use, here's where the sacrifices come in. The suspension is stiff. Remember, this one's on the SACHS dampers, but either setup, both setups are pretty stiff. You're gonna feel all the roughness in the road. On long trips, the steering can get a little bit tiring, and the performance exhaust, I mentioned, can get a little bit drony on the highway. I mean, let's face it, even without that, there's not a ton of sound deadening in here. There's a lot of road noise. It's loud. Let's face it, none of that is unexpected. If you want this performance at this price, that's the trade-off you're going to have to make. But hey, you got heated seats, you got adaptive cruise, you got blind spot monitoring. Actually, the adaptive cruise, you even get that on the manual now as of 2024, as of last year. Actually, you get the whole EyeSight suite standard now, even on the manual as of last year. And I know the internet hates all the little nannies. They're like, I don't want all the extra EyeSight stuff in my car anyway on a performance car. But that's the beauty of having these systems where you can just turn off what you don't want. So turn off the lane shove assist. It's not a problem anymore. Turn off some of the extra beeps and stuff, and it stays out of the way. But you have them if you want them. Ultimately, if you're a car enthusiast and you're willing to take a little bit of pain in exchange for performance on the twisties, it's well worth the trade-off. You just kind of have to find where your tolerance level is, which for me involves skipping the performance exhaust. ultimately, it's pretty awesome having actual choices for enthusiast cars in the $30,000 price range with the GR86, the BRZ, and the Miata. Now, you do have to watch the options boxes a little bit there. This one, the performance exhaust, the automatic transmission, the performance package with the brakes and the SACHS dampers. This one is pushing 40, so getting a little bit up there in price, but still performance for the money. Again, trade-offs there for the daily driving, but it is pretty cool that this exists. It is a very planted feel. It is very fun to drive. It's got a little bit more speed than the Miata, a little bit more space than the Miata. If you're debating between a 2024 and a 2025, and unless you're actually taking it to the track, probably doesn't really matter too much whether you get the 24 or the 25. The steering, the suspension tweaks, the throttle mapping, not going to make a huge difference between the two. But if you are somebody that's taking this canyon carving, taking it to the track a lot, then obviously you're going to want to get the best performance, assuming you're not already doing things to the car yourself, making modifications on your own. For me personally, I still kind of prefer the Miata. It helps that I fit in it. If you're tall, this one is going to be the better choice. If you need to carry stuff around, this one's going to be the better choice. If you like that more planted feel, this is going to be the better choice. And if you want something a little bit faster feeling, then this will be the better choice. But I like the sense of ceremony you get with the Miata. The manual transmission in that is so good. And you do get a little bit of a nicer interior, though it is more cramped. You know, on a personal level, I still prefer the manual, but it's not because the auto is bad. The auto, again, has actually impressed me quite a bit. As always, let me know what you think about the GR86 down below. Let me know if you would pick this, or if you'd pick a Miata, if you'd pick the auto, if you'd pick the manual, what you would choose. And if you are interested in seeing the Subaru counterpart, the BRZ, I have a BRZ TS in manual coming up in a couple of weeks. Thanks for watching. See you next time.